Good afternoon or evening. My name is Keisha Williams, and I serve as the Director for Parent and Family Relations. We are so happy to have you here for Family Weekend, our last day of Family Weekend, and we saved the best for last. We have a program today that I think you're really going to gain a lot of great content from. It's called Undergraduate Academic Advising. Before I introduce my two wonderful colleagues, I do want to go over briefly that you can ask questions throughout the presentation in the Q&A. We will be answering them towards the end of the presentation. And those questions that we are unable to get to, please feel free to email me at bluejfamilies@jhu.edu. Today's presentation is going to talk to you about the academic structure at Hopkins and also provide resources. So without further ado, I'll introduce my colleagues, Jesse Martin, who is the academic advisor for the School of Arts and Sciences, Krieger School of Arts and Sciences, and Denise Shipley, who is the academic advisor for the Whiting School of Engineering. Thank you, ladies, and I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, good evening. Families, I hope all is well. My name again is Denise Shipley, and I'm representing the Office of Engineering Advising on the Homewood campus. Assistant Dean Martin and I are just going to kind of tag team this. We're going to go through a few slides for you. We're going to be fairly quickly on our slides that we have time for you to ask us questions, because we know there's a lot of information you're probably wanting to know. We're about almost halfway through the term, which is really amazing to us right now. Can't believe that it's going this quickly. It's already October. So it's a little fast, a little shocking that it's going this quickly. So we hope that your students are doing well in this non-typical semester for us. But we're just going to share with you what we're going to discuss quickly with you this evening. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so just a quick overview of what undergraduate education at JHU is like, and then the role of undergraduate academic advising, so that you are aware of what your students are, the structure that your students are under, and then how your students being supported during the remote learning this fall 2020 term. So I'm going to turn it over to Assistant Dean Jesse Martin.
Great, thank you. So I just wanted to spend a minute talking about the academic structure of Johns Hopkins. We put together this diagram just to show you all of the schools that make up Johns Hopkins University. The three circles in the diagram, the Krieger School for Arts and Sciences, the Whiting School of Engineering, and Peabody make up the three undergraduate schools at Hopkins. And then we have the School of Nursing, the School of Advanced International Studies, the School of Education, the School of Medicine, the School of Public Health, and the Carey Business School. I always like to bring this up because I'm not sure that it's really clear, especially to new students, that students between Krieger and Whiting can major in different majors in each school. Students can do that in Peabody. They have to get admitted into Peabody specifically in order to do a music major there. But any student can take classes from all of the different schools. And so we have students taking classes at the School of Public Health or the School of Advanced International Studies through what's called interdivisional registration.
Hold on, for some reason it's not. Okay. Like Assistant Dean Martin was just sharing, we do have a very good number of undergraduate majors through our schools. Within the Krieger School of Arts and Sciences, there are 38 majors that your students can participate in and earn a degree in. We have 13 within the Whiting School of Engineering, and then there are 4 majors within the Peabody Institute. And so like Assistant Dean Martin was saying, we have a lot of students who are able to take classes regardless of where their primary major is or their only major is. They're able to take classes, you know, if they're a Whiting School student, they take classes with arts and science students and vice versa. And some of them may take some courses at Peabody or some music lessons and things of that nature. That's very, very common. In fact, it's integrated, at least between the Whiting School and the Krieger School of Arts and Sciences. It's integrated. Your students will be taking at least one or two classes, at least on the engineering side. They definitely take their math classes within Krieger School of Arts and Sciences and things of that nature. So there's a lot of cross-taking of courses. We don't distinguish the classes, and they're not restricted fully. Like if you're arts and sciences, you can only take arts and science class. If you're engineering, you can only take engineering. That's not the case.
In addition to major requirements, each school has its own writing intensive, humanities, social science requirements, and what we call natural science, quantitative, engineering classes. The composition of a degree is, typically like 120 credits for a bachelor's degree. There's some majors in the arts and sciences like physics and maybe even engineering. I'm not exactly sure about engineering that are a little bit more than 120, but usually around 120 credits for a bachelor's degree. And, a major could be anywhere from 40 to 80 credits. And our distribution credits, we have like 4 writing intensive for Krieger, less for engineering, usually 6 credits unless you're earning a BA, and then it does become 12 credits. And then just 3 credits of humanities, social science, and quantitative classes. So what this does is it usually leaves room for the students to explore a little bit. Like even if most of the time the students are doing one major, a lot of their major classes will double count with their distribution classes or their writing intensive. So it leaves a lot of room for a possible double major, a minor, or just fun, just taking fun classes. So most of our students are actually looking for things to do and looking for classes to take and aren't really worried about getting all of their requirements in time. And most of our students do double major, and you can double major across schools.
And I do want to add, that's not just within Krieger. There are a good number of engineering students that double major as well. Okay, so now we want to talk to you about what we do, what our 2 offices do, and why we have our offices. So what is academic advising? What's advising? So we like to think of ourselves, you kind of see like we're the center of a wheel. We really look at ourselves as the hub or a really good resource for your student to know what's going on in terms of their academics, to know where to go, what resources are available to them. We also like to think of ourselves not just with their academics, that if they don't know, if they're having some other types of difficulties that are impacting them and their ability to do their work, that they can come to us and ask us, even if they don't think that we're the right office, and even if we're not the right office, we'll do our best to direct them. So we like to think of ourselves as, like I said, the hub. And we then have branches with our faculty advising structure, and we'll explain that a little bit. We also have connections to tutoring, coaching, academic planning, policy, that's a big one. They come to us a lot of times to clarify academic policies. And then again, as I was saying, connecting to resources, and not just solely academic resources. If there are other things that are impacting them and their ability to focus on their academics, we at least can tell them where to go and give them some direction. So we like to think of ourselves as that central place so that they can get information from. And so we do have 2 offices, as you've heard. Engineering students, if your primary major is within engineering, you would speak to an advisor like myself or my supervisor, who's the assistant dean, comparable to Ms. Martin. And so we're pretty decent sized offices. Ms. Martin's office, almost comparable to our population in terms of our undergrads. About 2/3 of our students are Krieger School of Arts and Sciences, about 1/3 of undergrads are Whiting School students. And so our offices are staffed about that structure in that same way. So we have about 3 full-time advisors in my office, and then the assistant dean. And then we additionally have, as does Ms. Martin's office, we additionally have some success coaches who are also academic advisors, so that there are a few additional people within our office, other advisors within our office. So we have about a total of 6 advisors right now within our office, and then the assistant dean. And then Assistant Dean Martin, you have how many advisors on your staff? 9 or more?
We have 9 traditional advisors and now about 5 success coach advisors.
Yes. So there are a lot of resources for your students, a lot of people for your students to be connected to. And again, we have a structure where it's faculty advising as well, and we'll talk about that a little bit in a moment, and tutoring, a lot of other resources for your students. So we like to think of ourselves as a centralized location, then we help them direct them to these other areas.
So this is a little bit of a visual about, how students move through the various types of advisors that they're going to get. And I like to think of it as like building a network, or, you're gaining people as you choose different majors, minors, professions. In the Krieger School of Arts and Sciences, in the first year, students are undeclared. So freshmen are undeclared, and they're not allowed to declare until they're right before their sophomore status. And so there are primary role advisors whose sole job it is to advise students. And we help students get ready, get here, get ready, academic planning, academic resources, academic policies, all the things that Denise mentioned in the last slide. And then when students declare their major, they are then given a faculty advisor who becomes their primary academic advisor as a sophomore, junior, and senior. Students get an academic advisor for every major and minor that they have. And so there's this network of people that are just helping your student to, academically plan and think about graduate school or think about things that they want to be involved with. Faculty advisors are definitely the experts in the discipline and in the department and in the major and recommendations for graduate school. And professional or primary role advisors are, as Denise said, like the center, the person, the concierge, the person who's connecting you to resources. And, this represents a dotted line because the primary role advisor never really leaves the student. We're still assigned to the student. The student can self-select appointments with us in their sophomore, junior, and senior year. We still follow their academic progression. We're doing a lot of things to, behind the scenes to look for red flags or things, points of intervention that we can help students with. In the Whiting School of Engineering, because students in the Whiting School of Engineering declare their major as freshmen, they get their faculty advisor right away. And so they're working with their faculty advisor, who's their primary advisor from the beginning. But they also have a primary role advisor, like Denise, who is doing all of the things that the advisors are doing in the Krieger School of Arts and Sciences.
So one of the things we wanted to talk to you about, again, kind of going along this model of how we're structured, is that we know right now it's the fall. And as I said in the very beginning, I don't know about you, but I really can't believe it's October. It's a little wild to me that it's October. And at the end of this week, the 9th, it will be the 6th week, the end of the 6th week for us. And so talking about that student life cycle in a fall semester, like I said, the end of this week, that means we're almost really at our halfway point, which is very wild for us. We've gone very quickly. But what happened for your student this summer, especially for your incoming students, your freshman students, this summer, they were assigned to a professional advisor like myself, either within engineering or within arts and sciences advising. And we worked with them on their schedule. So we helped them choose classes and let them know, or they chose their classes, of course, but we let them know whether or not that made sense for what they were thinking about. And we gave them some feedback on their schedules. Then if they were also, again, their engineering, they also met with their faculty advisor and they gave additional feedback. Then we shifted to September, excuse me. In September, again, this is a very unique time for us. This is not our typical term, but I think the university as a whole is working really, really hard to keep normalcy and do as many things as we would typically do if we were face-to-face online. So one of the things that usually happens in early to mid-September is that your students are introduced to other resources and other ways to be engaged on campus, usually through our student organizations and our student life. We want them to know about things they can do because we want them to be well-rounded students, not just solely in their academics. We want them to be engaged in activities and things that make them balance, as I said. And so usually that happens in early to mid-September, and it still happened. We had a virtual fair for your students. Well, I shouldn't say we, the Office of Student Life had a virtual fair for your students, and they spread it out over 3 days. And so your students were able to see what kind of student groups are already in existence, learn about things they may want to participate in the future. And so they were able to do that. So that's one thing that's really good. We kind of want to balance their lives a little bit, not just on the academic side. But of course, we are, though, very important, very vested in the academics. And so right now we're shifting. We're now in October. And your students probably, if they haven't had an exam yet, they're probably going to start having an exam now. This week, next week. We call it, usually, it's the funny thing at Hopkins, this was the midterm. So they are having their midterm one. But interestingly enough, at Hopkins, for whatever reason, every exam except for their final is called a midterm. So your student may say, well, I had my second midterm for this class, I had my third midterm. You're like, well, how'd you have a midterm when I thought we're, almost done? Anyway, that's just a little Hopkins thing. We just say everything's a midterm unless it's your final. But your students, if they have not had some yet, they probably are going to start experiencing them right around now. So the next week or so, we're in that area. And then we're also going to start thinking about their spring, okay? And so towards the end of this month, they're going to start working with their advisors again. Within arts and sciences, they're going to meet with their advisor. And within engineering, we have engineering advising week towards the end of the month, and they're going to meet with their faculty advisor to start planning for their spring classes. So what will happen in November, as you see on the diagram, in mid-November, they will be able to register for their spring classes. And so it's on a staggered model. We have our current seniors get to have first dibs, then 2 days later, the current juniors, 2 days later, the current sophomores, and then finally, the current first-year students. They will all get classes, do not worry. That's how we always structure it. They always get classes, it's okay. So they'll be doing that in mid-November. And so again, this month, they're starting to have exams. They're gonna start talking to their advisors to choose their classes for the spring. They'll register in November. And then right after Thanksgiving in November, when they, I was gonna say when they come back, typically when they come back, but right after Thanksgiving will be around our exam time. So there's a short window of time, the end of class, and then it's gonna be final exams in mid-December. And so that's our typical fall semester. Again, typical in as much as it can be, but we're kind of holding true to the normal cycle that we have. And so we put a lot of things online, as you know, but your students, again, are going through this, and so it's going rapidly. They have questions. We hope that you tell them to talk to us.
And so a little bit more about some of the things that we do. At the end of each semester, the Office of Academic Advising does an official academic review of each student's record. And, mainly we're looking for students. We do Dean's List. And so anyone who has 12 graded credits, 14 credits overall, and a 3.5 cumulative GPA is eligible for Dean's List. And we process those statuses for our students and send official letters. And then we also look for students who are not meeting, the minimum academic standards, which is basically earning 12 credits and a 2.0 GPA for the term. We don't process academic standing based on a cumulative GPA, which is very typical of a lot of schools, especially like state schools and universities. But rather we look at each individual term and if a student has completed 12 credits and if they have earned a 2.0. And then students are placed onto academic probation if they fall below those minimum standards. The academic probation status is not on the external transcript, and it's not meant to be punitive in any way. It really is a way for us to learn who needs more intervention to, ensure success in the following semester. Once a student is on academic probation, they may be restricted on the number of credits they can take each semester. They may have to participate in things like study consulting program. They are usually required to meet with their academic advisor periodically, usually like every 2 weeks or once a month, kind of depending on the situation. And what we normally do in those sessions, those academic coaching sessions, is we work on time management. We do like a semester-long academic plan with, assignments and due dates. We, check in with them about assignments. We talk about, their plans for studying for this and how they're going to manage that. And it's really successful. Approximately like 80% of our students who are on academic probation return to good academic standing in the following semester. So that extra bit of coaching does seem to help students. And that's really the goal, to get off of academic probation in the next term or semester. Students need to, again, achieve 12 credits in a 2.0. And if they don't, they could be up for academic dismissal, which is reviewed by a academic review committee for all the students who don't quite make that benchmark.
Got to unmute myself, sorry about that. Going along with what Assistant Dean Martin just shared, in addition to just monitoring for, their GPA and their status that way, we're also monitoring their students and how they're progressing towards completing their degree. And so our offices do it slightly differently, but it still occurs for both offices. The advisors will be monitoring your students' success and how they're progressing. One thing that within Krieger School of Arts and Sciences, in their junior year, they have a system called junior clearance. And so they're meeting with their advisor to kind of go over a checklist, a degree audit, so to speak, and kind of looking at where they are and what they need to do so they can prepare for their last year, so they know what they need to finish and what they need to complete. And that's also time to figure out if they have been taking classes all along, and maybe you could add a minor, like you've taken something towards adding a minor, you just never officially declared, that would be the time to do that. So those are the times, those kind of conversations they have to kind of see where they are in their progress. Within engineering, it's slightly different, because we expect that when they're meeting, our students meet with their faculty advisor each term to choose their next term's classes. As I was just telling you, in November, when they're going to actually select their classes for the spring, we want them to be going over their progress with their faculty advisor then. And so each semester they're supposed to do that. And so I would encourage all the parents, especially parents of engineering students, to encourage your students to make sure that they tell that they go over their progress with their faculty advisor. We do have a degree audit system, which has been up and running for years within KSS, or Krieger School of Arts and Sciences, and will be fully rolled out within engineering very soon. But students have been using it in the background, and so it's helpful, but it's always good for them to confirm everything with their faculty advisor or an advisor. We want to encourage you, though, to encourage your students to make sure that each term they're checking their progress along the way. Then when it's time to graduate, their senior year, we will go over, departments tell us, at least with engineering, how their students, like the students that should be graduating. Students apply for graduation, and then we get lists and we go through them. The different advising offices and advisors go through the students on the graduation list to see, again, if they fulfill what they need to fulfill. And right before graduation time, or right during, after grades have been submitted, we're going through vetting everybody and making sure they have completed what they need to complete, so they actually can have their degrees conferred, which is then the graduation conferral. Beyond that, though, it kind of, Assistant Dean was mentioning before, along the way, we're still monitoring your students to make sure that they are
Okay, so this is a question that has already come up in the chat, and I'm sure a lot of you have a lot of questions. So our fall 2020 grading system will be default SU, which is satisfactory, unsatisfactory. However, students will be able to elect to have letter grades shown, and they can do that for each individual class. So I can choose to keep my SU for class A and then get a letter grade in classes B and C, and then get a satisfactory grade in class D. So it's not all or nothing. The way that it's going to work, because students are going to be able to see their grades and then decide if they would like to keep those grades or if they would like it to default to the SU grading system. And the only way that we could get that to work technically in the system for students to be able to see their grades before they make their final choices was that we were going to we have to get the professor to submit the official grade in the system. And so it's going to look like students are getting grades and then choosing SU. But in fact, if students don't do anything, then their grades would default to SU. So students will have until January 10th to make this decision. They should have all of their grades by that time. They will get their official grade via the student information system like they always do. And there will likely be a space on the add drop screen where they're going to be able to sort of have a checkbox to choose letter grade or SU grade, letter grade, SU grade. And then after the 10th, it's locked in and then unchangeable for the future. And so what that means is that students will not be able to uncover their grade at a later time. So they have to make sure that they know that they're making a permanent decision on January 10th. If a student elects all SU grades, they will meet good academic standing. Like they won't have a GPA, so they'll meet good academic standing just by completing 12 credits, 12 graded credits. And the same thing for financial aid, good standing for financial aid. As long as they earn 12 credits, then 12 S's, then they will be in good standing with financial aid and with the school. Dean's List is unchanged. In order to differentiate students from one another, there has to actually be grades in order to do that. So to give a Dean's List. So there will be, the same standards that you have to have, 12 graded credits, 14 credits total with a 3.5 GPA in order to make the Dean's List for the semester. And then like last semester, we will have a notation on official transcripts explaining the grading configuration. So it will likely say something like, the default grading system for fall 2020 was SU. Students did have the option to choose grades if that was their choice, you know, something similar to that.
So one of the things we wanted to share with you is what, again, keep on mentioning resources, and I'm sorry, I forgot to show my video again, sorry about that. We want you to know, we've shared this with your student, but we want you to know as well that we are, again, doing our best to support your student, as we always do. And there are already resources that we have in place, that we've had in place for years, that this year we've tried to also ramp up, understanding that this is not our typical term. And so we've tried to increase some things. So some of the things that we've done are increase our tutoring sessions. And so there's some resources on campus. I think there was already a separate session for the academic resources, but very quickly, the academic support being the Learning Den, which is our small group tutoring. So they've increased tutoring options for that. Pilot being our peer-led training and sessions. We've increased that, and additionally this year, being piloted for pilot this year, for our traditional math class, our math courses that are offered from the Arts and Sciences department, which engineering students take too, like from our calculus, we're talking about differential equations, we're talking about our linear algebra courses. The math department actually embedded pilot, which again is that peer-led training, into their math classes this year. Usually it's a voluntary situation, and it is for all of our other subjects right now, but the math department wanted to see, they're trying to see if this is going to be something they want to continue, so they're doing it for the first time this year by piloting, again, pardon the pun, pilot within their classes. And so that's something that's different for this semester. And then also increased study consulting. There's also the study consultant program. Students can sign up and have a one-to-one consultant that they meet with weekly, or they can just do drop-in sessions. I know they also have drop-in sessions for things a couple times during the week. If a student doesn't feel like they need to be paired with a consultant, but just has some questions about, you know, how do I organize my notebook? You know, how do I get my schedule together? Something like that. And so they have that. So those are all services that were already in place, but they've been trying to enhance a little bit, understanding that this is a very unique semester for us. They've increased the sizes or the number of TAs in our larger class sections. They've added some more people to help the instructors with that, which is good. One-to-one mandatory fall advising sessions. I think that's within Krieger School of Arts and Sciences, the advising office, the one-to-one with their advisors. Engineering is a little bit different, but again, your students should be meeting with their faculty advisor every term, so that should happen. And again, for us, it typically is going to happen now, towards the end of this month and the very beginning of or early November, okay? And then, as I was mentioning previously, if a faculty member is having concerns about your student's progress, they can raise an alert in Starfish to go directly to the student. Sometimes it goes directly to the student. Well, not sometimes, it goes directly to the student, but it also comes to their advisor. And again, their advisor then can prompt them, like say, did you see this alert your instructor sent about your progress? Please reach out to them, and if you have not done so already, or if you want to come talk to me. And then we do that definitely if a student's having challenges, that we will also ask them to come talk to us too if they believe that, you know, maybe if they're having challenges in multiple ways, we'll ask them to come talk to us so we can help them a little bit. And then increased drop-in advising hours. Both offices have the advising hours during the week. And the last slide you'll see, you can access it through our web pages. But we definitely have advisors on alert. So if your student needs to just speak to someone and maybe not their assigned professional advisor, they just want to talk to any advisor, they just have a very quick question, they can do one of our drop-in hours if that works for them.
So just a little bit about experiential opportunities. You know, I've talked to a lot of students who are thinking that there aren't any, you know, experiential opportunities because we are online. And I just want to bring up that that's really not true. There's definitely not any study abroad right now. I know the study abroad office is making plans. and going through their typical procedures for planning for summer study abroad experiences. Whether that happens or not, obviously we have to get closer to that period of time before decisions can be made. But there is a lot of research and internships and jobs and even clinical shadowing. So I don't know if any of you were at the pre-professional session that was also today, but there are actually still opportunities that are happening for students. And so undergraduate research, at Hopkins is still going on. Most of our students are still participating in research that are, typically do participate in research. They're just doing it remote and online. And so a lot of what that looks like is helping their PIs with, prepare papers to read peer-reviewed journal articles and summarize the findings for the PIs, to work on data analysis with the PIs. One of my students is actually publishing a paper at the end of this year with his research team. And so I just want to encourage students that these things are still out there. There's a lot of remote and virtual internships that are going on. I think in the spring, where things were like really, really shut down and people were kind of like overwhelmed, in the private sector for internships and in research. But over the summer, that really picked back up and people started opening up more positions and experiences. And if your students, don't know how to get started, I think it's a good idea for them to contact their academic advisor and just get some advice on that. We also, for research, we have the Hopkins Office of Undergraduate Research. They have drop-in hours via Zoom where students can go and just say, like, how do I get started with this? I will say that it's not typical that it's hard for freshmen, even in a regular semester, to jump right into a research experience. A lot of these opportunities happen with the development of relationships and meeting faculty and going to office hours and doing things like that. But there's also a lot of success through what I like to call like cold calling. But basically it's like where students look at our directory of research, which is called Forager One, and they find faculty members who are doing research and things that they're interested in. And then they just send emails to them and say, hey, I'm a Hopkins undergrad. I'm really interested in joining your lab. And they do that for like 20 people, and maybe 3 people write back and 1 person accepts them into their lab. But it's not weird or unusual because everyone's doing that and all the faculty and professors are used to it. And it's just like a cultural thing of how students get research at Hopkins.
So the reason why we're bringing this up is because we know that your students are probably really eager and wanting to get these types of opportunities, and really want, and really, that they hear their peers, or they hear upper class students who are involved in seemingly so many different things. And so we want you to be aware we're still available. But we also want to say we don't want there to be pressure, like Assistant Dean Martin was just saying. We don't want your student, especially your first year student, to feel pressure to have these opportunities late, already acquired. In fact, it's really, like she said, it's kind of challenging to get them your first year. And this first semester, I think we said no for first year students to get research opportunities. But that doesn't mean they don't lay the groundwork for it. That's perfectly fine. As we were talking earlier, one of the earlier slides of, when we mentioned back in September how we had the virtual student organization fairs and things like that. We want your students to be well-rounded people. Of course, their objective is their academics, right? That's the main reason why they're here. But we also know that we want them to participate in clubs. We want them to make friends. We want them to know how to relax. And so we just had this little schematic here showing, we don't want to be so imbalanced with all the work and everything being so heavy with the work that they don't have any quality of life type of thing. And one of the things that we've noticed probably more so with our upper class students than our current first year students is that a lot of our students were thinking, well, because I'm not going to be physically on campus, I can do more work this year. I can, this would be the perfect term for me to take more classes because I won't have as many, I won't I won't physically be on campus, literally having to get between class to class, but they're still forgetting, we had to kind of remind some of them that you still are going to be beholden to the amount of hours that that extra class, the extra opportunity is going to have, and the responsibilities of that. And so we want to make sure that you are, if you can, the extent that you feel comfortable, reminding your student to have a balanced experience, okay? And especially this semester, being that we are remote, and especially for our first year students, making those connections and trying, getting that peer network together will be really, really important, because again, this is unique for all of us, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be in a more traditional environment in the spring. But, to the extent that we can control it, if we can't, like I said, the university is doing, it's really, really making a valiant effort to have these opportunities and ways to expose your student anyway, and getting them involved in different things and clubs and activities, and having them have channels to make connections and make friends with each other. So we just want to make sure they realize that balance. It's very important for the internships. It's very important. I personally believe that no Hopkins student should leave without having some kind of what we call IAW, independent academic work, being our research internship, or oh my gosh, I'm totally blanking on the third. I just totally lost it right there. But those independent or independent study, there's the third, our independent experiences. I'm of the mindset that no one should graduate at least by having one of those the entire time at Hopkins, because we are, of course, the first undergraduate research institution. So it's very, very important to us. But at the same time, we don't want your students to be lost and not have balance and be well-rounded and enjoy their time as well. So we just want to kind of share that with you, that it's very important. Those experiential opportunities are really important. And they can be a way also to make connections. They can be in clubs or organizations that are also academically based. I know Krieger has them, and definitely within engineering, we have organizations that are major specific, or field specific, excuse me. So there are ways for them to still connect with their peers and also get, exposure to what they want to do post Hopkins. And so we just want to make sure that your students realize that they can be well balanced.
All right, so this is our last slide, I believe, before we'll take some questions. So this is just our contact information for both the Krieger School of Arts and Sciences and the Whiting School of Engineering. Either you or your student can email us at our general advising email addresses, which is sometimes the best thing to remember, a simple way to get a hold of us. We also have websites with lots of information. And just so you know, like our students have, for your student, we have drop-in advising in addition to, individual appointments with advisors. So the drop-ins are individual, but it's with any advisor on staff, and you don't need an appointment. So it's a great way for a student to get a quick question answered. So I think we'll turn it over to Keisha, who's going to moderate the chat.
Yes, thank you so much, ladies, for, again, just great information. My first question for you guys is, what is the difference between a faculty advisor and an academic advisor?
Do you mind? Okay, so a faculty advisor is a faculty member within a department. So, of course, I'm biased for engineering students, but let's say within our mechanical engineering department, a faculty advisor is a faculty member within that department, and they are then assigned to a certain number of students. Different departments they structure it in their own way. There may be one advisor or two faculty advisors that handle all the incoming students. There could be, or they could do alphabetically. It just depends on the structure of that department. But a faculty advisor is a faculty member within that department. And as we shared earlier, within engineering, because our students declare their majors from the onset, engineering students are paired with a faculty advisor the very beginning of the fall. Once the fall semester kicks in, they have their faculty advisor, but they still also have a professional advisor like myself. And then within Krieger School of Arts and Sciences, they have a professional advisor their entire first year and then beyond. And by the way, I still with your students the whole time too. But within Krieger School of Arts and Sciences, they're with your student, the professional advisor their first year entirely. And then towards the end of the spring of their first year, your students will be declaring their major. And then they'll also, once they declare their major for the sophomore year, they'll then have a faculty advisor within that department who takes on more of the primary role but then the professional advisor, again, is still there to answer questions. That sometimes, a lot of times policy questions faculty members may not know. They know more of the what we hope they know is, the actual content of the classes, take this course before you take that course and that kind of thing. So that's why we have faculty advisors, particularly with engineering, why we get them set up earlier is because the structure of most of engineering programs, our students start off with a lot of classes, and so they need those foundational classes, and they need a faculty advisor who can say, again, take this before that kind of thing. But then again, a person like me is still available to work with your students, and there's certain things that only the advisors within the respective advising offices can give permission to do and things of that nature. So we're still relevant, but that's the main difference. The faculty advisors should know the curriculum really, really well, and then we know more broader based answers. We know the curriculum too, but not as necessarily specificity that a faculty advisor would.
Yeah, I always like to say we're generalists, and advising is solely our job. And we have obviously like larger caseloads than faculty whose primary role is to teach or to do research and also advise. But the faculty member is the specialist. So they're going to know a lot more about neuroscience than I am because I don't have a degree in neuroscience. But I know a lot about everything, a little bit about everything. And the faculty advisor knows a lot about neuroscience and how to become a neuroscientist and what classes to take in neuroscience. So Hopkins has a wonderful advising program because it doesn't do one or the other, it does both. And so students get the best of both worlds.
Thank you, ladies. And piggybacking off of that, do students have the opportunity to change advisors, or I guess when would a situation sometimes present itself that would need to happen?
Yeah, so I think we should answer this. It might be different by the schools. I can answer for KSAS, and then I'll let Denise answer for engineering. In KSAS, I think the answer is most of the time, yes. Like you could change your advisor based on just your preference. Maybe you didn't click with that advisor. Maybe they never emailed you back when they should have emailed you back. And so we get sometimes requests for that, and we try to make changes always when a student asks. I think the only reason it might be hard is if it's a faculty advisor, like the student wants to change who their faculty advisor is, and maybe the major is really small and there is only one faculty advisor. So that could happen for some of our smaller majors. But if the question was prompted by someone who wants their student to change their advisor and they are a KSAS student, they can just email me,jessie@jhu.edu, and I can look into it and see what I can do. And Denise, do you want to answer for engineering?
Yeah, so within engineering, certainly if there was a professional advisor, if you're a student, we typically are broken down by alphabet. So for us, we usually just have our caseloads by alphabet. But if there were some real issue, they could also speak to my counterpart, Assistant Dean Martin's counterpart, my supervisor, Assistant Dean Janet Weiss, if they had a serious concern about their professional advisor with whom they're assigned to. But if there's a faculty advisor, we would direct them to the department. And so, because again, as Jessie was saying, some of the departments have different structures in how they divvy out their faculty advisors, but certainly if a student would like to be paired with a different advisor, typically that can happen, particularly on the faculty level, that we usually refer them to the department. Within engineering departments, they have academic program coordinators who usually know the departments really well and know who the different faculty advisors are. And so that would probably be the first person, depending on the department, I would lead the student to. So just like Assistant Dean Martin was saying, if they're having an issue and they don't know who to ask, they can email us, so they can email wsadvising@jhu.edu, and we can help them figure out where to go.
Thank you. And Denise, this next question is for you as well. What percentage of students double major in engineering? And then if they do, what's usually the second major, I guess, if they choose?
Oh, this is funny because Jessie and I, we were doing the presentation, because she had statistics. I wasn't sure if it was just for arts and sciences, or if it was for engineering as well. I actually don't know, but a fairly decent amount. I mean, the statistic that Jesse had was 60% double major. And again, I'm not sure if that was for whiting as well as arts and sciences. A good amount of our students, though, do double major. There is no set perfect double major. It really should be, if your student is interested in adding something else, they should have an interest in it. Like that really should be the driving force, because they're going to be taking a few more classes, doing some more work. And so we really want it to be something that they are invested in. And it's okay. They only earn 1 degree. So let's say that you only earn 1 degree. A second major, though, will be noted on your diploma and certainly noted on your transcript. But there is only 1 degree to be earned. And so unless they're doing the dual degree program with Peabody, but that's not the same thing. But it's not a requirement by any means for a student to do a double major. And I don't think students should feel pressure to do so. But if they really have desire, it's perfect, it's welcomed. If they have desire to do it, it's welcome. I would say what I always encourage students to do, especially first year students who are considering adding a second major or a minor, which is also another option. A lot of our majors, not all of them, but a lot of our majors have minors. And so sometimes, the difference would be they aren't taking all of the additional classes, they're just taking maybe 6 to 7 core classes in a particular area of interest for them. So that may be something that's doable for your student. But if they really want to take a secondary major, I encourage them to talk to a DUS. And every department has a DUS, and that stands for Director of Undergraduate Studies. And that's a faculty member within the department who's kind of charged with knowing the program the department had, the undergraduate programs that they have, whether or not, the major, of course, and if they have minors, they're a really good first point of contact for your student. So before your student just adds a secondary major, they should really take the time to talk to the DUS of that department, talk to their peers as well, get some feedback from other people, but really talk to the DUS to kind of see what the second major would be about, what they can do with it post Hopkins, why do they want to marry the 2 majors kind of deal. So that would be what I would say for first point of contact would be a DUS, Director of Undergraduate Studies. And again, both schools have them. They're, it's a faculty member appointed to be a good first point of contact for a student. So tell your student to investigate it a little bit before they add it.
Okay, thank you. And the next question is, how does a satisfactory or unsatisfactory affect the transcript and GPA and future of grad school?
Yeah, so I can attempt to answer that, and Denise, jump in if you have anything to add. So first of all, a satisfactory, unsatisfactory grade will not affect the GPA. So it, you'll get, let's say you get an S, like you will earn credits for the class, but it won't impact your GPA either way. And the same if you get a U, like if you get an F, it'll negatively impact your GPA, but if you get a U, it won't negatively impact your GPA. So no one should get an F this semester because why would you do that? Right. I mean, both can be like negative indicators, but one is kind of has a double negative consequence. So just something to tell your students. Whether or not you should choose an S or a grade, a letter grade, is a very personal decision. I think it depends on whether the course that you're taking is a likely prerequisite for a graduate course. And if it is, if it's a BCPM course and your student is pre-med, then you would not want to take it for an S, because it's very likely that the graduate school is going to want to see it for a grade. So I think in those courses where you have an idea that you're probably going to need this for grad school, like you should probably choose a grade, unless there was some really unforeseen circumstance where you were impacted by COVID, and had some, and then maybe you should take an S. We are inviting all students into conversations about this. Once the mechanism gets built for students to be able to actually make their choices, we had to build that from scratch, like once the decision was made, because that didn't actually exist, the ability to do that in our student information system. So once that is built, I'm thinking by November 1st, we're going to send out instructions to students on that, and then invite them to come to our drop-in hours or our individual advising appointments and really have those conversations about whether or not they should take these classes for SU. One of the pieces of advice that I got from the pre-professional advising office for pre-meds is, do not be tempted to choose an S if you got an A- or a B+ and you want to like have that perfect GPA. Maybe you got all A's, and if you took these classes as satisfactory, it would make your cumulative GPA slightly higher. But graduate schools and professional schools are looking for grades most of the time. And so I just want to make sure like our most talented students don't fall into the trap of choosing that with the goal of GPA perfecting. So that is a message that I've been giving students.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Does non-credit research experience also count as opposed to research which has credits?
I think if that question, what I gather from that question is, how can your student use experience they're not getting credit listed on their transcript? They can still put on their resume. So yes, they certainly would want to highlight whatever they're doing. Within Hopkins, if your student's able to get a research experience where they're able to get paid, then they can't get it for credit as well. And so certainly though, I always tell students, you're able to get paid for it, yay, because it's not very often, especially not early on. But certainly they should be putting on their resume. Those experiences are most certainly be noted and should be noted. So yes, they should be okay.
Okay. Thank you. And the final question, because we're in light of time, and I think for the families too, if we didn't get your question answered, we'll try to answer it really quick in the chat. Or remember, both Denise and Jesse did leave their contact information, so please get in contact with them or contact me at bluejfamilies@jhu.edu. But the last question is, what is the process like if you would like to change your school from Krieger to Whiting or vice versa? What would be the process if you wanted to do something like that? Specifically for a sophomore.
Really easy. We actually have an online form now that your student has access to, especially if they're a current student that's been here. They have access to it. They go through SIS registration, and then there's going to be something that says online forms. And so the online forms, it's going to see two different things: change major or drop and swap. But they actually want to do the one that says change major, but they're going to, or add major minor, excuse me. And what they would do is complete that form. It's going to go to the department they want to switch to now, and they'll say yay or nay. They'll say yay. You're going to say yay, but I will say, for example, I know within engineering, our computer science department, because we have a lot of students who, it's become very, very popular in the last few years. Computer science has just grown exponentially. Sometimes the department will put a hold on students being able to add a secondary major or even a minor right around registration time, because they want to make sure that students who are already in those majors and minors are able to get the classes. And so they do kind of put a moratorium on adding a major or minor. As far as I know, that's the only one, besides our BME program, which is selective admissions from the jump. So besides that, our CS department just puts a slight moratorium right around registration time on adding a secondary major or minor or primary major too. But then it does open again. So anyway, student will fill out a form, it goes to the department. The department may want to have a conversation. Like I was saying before, I always encourage students to talk to the DUS, no matter, whatever department they're thinking of switching to. They really want not just kind of, blindly throw a dart kind of deal at this point, especially if they're an upper level student. They don't want to just kind of blindly throw a dart like, oh my, this sounds good. I'd rather do this because I don't like this now. Have that conversation, make an informed decision, have some informational interviews. So that's what I encourage students to do.
Very good.
Especially if they're thinking about maybe more than one. Like, I like maybe biology, but maybe also cognitive science. You know, what's the difference between the two now? Like, what's the difference between cognitive science and neuroscience? Like, what can I do? So that's when they want to have those conversations before they just switch. But the actual act of switching, they do that online form. It goes to the department. The department usually says yes instantaneously. It goes back to the back end system. It gets entered to the registrar. It gets done. So the actual process is really quick, and they can initiate it on their own. But again, the other part that I would encourage your students to initiate is the conversation piece to make sure that they're switching and choosing something that's going to be a good fit for them.
I like that. I like that informational interview. It's like, just like when you're trying to find, well, research a school or a university or a job, you know, just to make sure that you understand what you're getting yourself into.
Exactly.
So very good advice. Well, that wraps up this wonderful session. I want to thank Jessie Martin and Denise Shipley again for sharing their expertise. It was very much appreciated, and especially during family weekend. Families, I want to thank you for your participation throughout the entire weekend, and we will continue to offer programming to you all throughout the semester, so look forward to that. And I would encourage you to attend our last program, which is our Homewood Arts Showcase, and all our talented students that are all in those great a cappella groups and dance groups. And so kind of get your dance on before you start your work week. So, but thank you again, ladies. Have a good rest of the weekend, and everyone stay safe. Thank you again.
Thank you. Bye.